Living through kindness, compassion, empathy, generosity is how we combat the cruelty and division. If you are generating this kindness, that is taking care of yourself and to keep showing up. And I would caution for folks who are, very empathetic and feeling a lot, not to retreat. I think that can kind of be the temptation. No, I would say actually lean in because you need it and others need you.
And welcome back, everyone. This is David Fung on the Coachful Coaching Leadership Podcast. Today, I'm joined by Jessica Wan. She's an executive coach and classically trained singer. I think it's an opera singer, to be exact. She hosts the Ampersand Manifesto. It's a show about people building careers across multiple disciplines. Jessica studied at Stanford University and earned an MBA at Berkeley Haas School of Business. And she's led marketing at companies like Apple, Smil, Magoosh, and the San Francisco Opera. Jessica, welcome to the show today.
Thank you for having me, David. It's so nice to be here.
So I did ask you just off camera, but I will ask you again while we're recording. How are you doing today?
I am doing well. And I have to say, I am feeling this tension of me, my family, my kind of circle of people. We're doing well. I'm grateful for this. Health, learning, we're doing well. And this is in the context of the greater thing that is happening in our country. So I'm based in the US and we're recording this on February 2nd. And it is just a really turbulent time and the change and the chaos doesn't stop. So a lot of what I've been thinking about is, my place in all of this. And I'm sure we'll talk about this more, how to show up as a leader, as a coach, as a parent. I have a 9-year-old in the house, and to show up as all of these things in the midst of our reality in 2026.
Yeah. And if you were to put into more words, like what that reality is, what would you say it is right now?
I think we live currently in a very fear-based and anxiety-ridden time. And I don't think it's necessarily constant all the time. And I think it hits people in a lot of different ways. But we live in this world that is always connected. Lots of folks are always hearing about the news as it happens. Communities still haven't totally come back from the pandemic, right? And I think that's also an altered reality too, the post-pandemic world where, there's lots of gifts. Like you and I can do this podcast recording pretty easily and we're used to it at this point. But there's also, I've heard from so many people that they're still really looking for their village, their community. And it's hard in changing times because that's what we all need.
Yeah. Yeah. Transitions and change. That's something I've been I left the my corporate job about four months ago now. Right. And personally, there's been, I guess for the most part, because of how I take change is for the most part good. But I've been really trying to understand what a good transition or change looks like. And I don't have a conclusion yet, but I've found little tactics and elements that are inherent in change. Number one, it's very difficult. And so when you say like folks are still finding their community, their tribe from what was the pandemic? 2020. This really stopped in 2021, give or take. That's 5 years ago now, right? Habits die hard, right? So, and I believe that a lot of those habits were, hey, I'm isolated from other people. And now I'm trying to find, deep relationships again with other people. And likely, and I knew a lot of people too, they lost their jobs, right? They lost that. And that's the sense of a lot of the social connection you have. So how you rebuild that community, that's a really important element too. And something I'm doing right now is meeting folks like you. It's building a new community. That's how I'm looking at it, as I'm transitioning and changing my life. So, but back to what you were saying, right? Like things are heavy. And let's talk about specifically what's dominating the news right now is things happening in Minneapolis, Minnesota right now.
Mhm.
Now I'm in Canada, but I still I get a lot of US news.
Yeah.
And if I was to be very honest with you, Jessica, very much I see the headline, I see enough, and I try to not dive too deep into that rabbit hole if
Yeah.
possible. I did the same thing in COVID. I erased all my social media accounts. I did it because if something's important, it would come to me. That said, my head's not in the sand. From what I can see going on there is it's a bit concerning. When you have a 5-year-old kid who is detained by immigration officers, that's freaking weird. I can't find a better word. Maybe that's even downplaying. That's weird. Why would you do that? I don't understand. And I guess coming from a point of a little bit of ignorance here, what do you feel is going on there, and what's the heaviest part of it that that you see?
I mean, I think it's all of it, right? And I will put a word on it. It's cruel. It's cruel to separate any child from their family. And I think that this administration and the, untrained ICE agents, like they're operating on cruelty, baseness, and profiling. And I think that, it has been terrible that we've gotten to this point, but it also feels like, the question for me is, have people actually woken up? Has there been an awakening that is now the majority of people saying, this is not okay? And I
Hmm.
saw something the other day. I'm sure that this quote can be attributed to some person. I don't know who said it, but the quote was, not one person can do everything, but everyone must do something. And I have been talking with my coach friends, my artist friends, my community. I just one example, I had a recital on January 25th. It was a pre scheduled recital, and my encore was Bring Him Home. And I dedicated that to kids who have been detained. And I think,
Hmm.
it's a small thing, but there is something in that action of even talking about it, dedicating it, that, everyone in my Bay Area audience, I think, is probably the same kind of political inclination, but it brings people together. And I think, no activist movement has not been totally intertwined with art, right? The artists get it. We
Hmm.
work in the world of emotion, connectivity, humanism.
Hmm.
So I think seeing what artists are doing and talking about, and everyone must do something. It doesn't mean we all have to do the same thing, but if you can donate to organizations, if you could participate in the national shutdown on Friday, if you do talk to your kids about the things that are happening that they have questions about in an age appropriate way, that is all of us doing something.
Mm. You know what? Where my mind goes right now, Jessica, is, and I, the last time I saw this heaviness was during the pandemic,
Hmm.
right? And everyone was locked in their houses, and then you saw it was in Minneapolis again too, right? Wasn't it?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Good God, double whammy there. And I remember how heavy that was for my team.
Hmm.
Like it was pretty wild actually. Like, and my mind goes to right away is like, how do those individuals who are clearly empathetic and compassionate like yourself, right? How do you take care of yourself? You know, despite, as coaches we talk about what's in your control, what's
Hmm.
not in your control.
Yeah.
Your actions are in your control, of course. So what are the ways that individuals who are seeing this heaviness, who are feeling these deep emotions, how do they take care of themselves
Mm.
in the process? And I'm not minimizing what's going on, right? But my mind goes right to like the people who worry about it, but you feel kind of helpless in some ways to help at times. So, I mean, what's your experiences there?
Yeah. I think talking about it with like minded folks is a start. And I will say, I think almost every conversation I had last week, we spent a little bit of time talking about it. And my clients talked about it because, of course, it is on everyone's minds. And then I think the second step is to really recognize already how you are showing up for other people, right? Like you see somebody in person, you give them a hug, you make them a cup of tea. And I think displaying these, they may seem small, but these acts of kindness and living through kindness, compassion, empathy, generosity is how we combat the cruelty and division. And it's hard to do, right? Because you may not be able to see the results right away. But I think if you are generating this kindness, that is taking care of yourself and to keep showing up. And I would caution for folks who are very empathetic and feeling a lot not to retreat. I think that can kind of be the temptation, right? This feels overwhelming. I'm going to just retreat from my community. No, I would say actually lean in because you need it and others need you.
Yeah, in my travels in understanding change and when it comes really quickly at you, one thing I learned, and I was reading something that from Arthur Brooks. He's a social scientist, and one thing he said was your vulnerability and your weakness is actually your strength of connection.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, trying to show that hey, I'm unaffected by things. I have a strong front. That actually keeps it's a barrier between you, a connection between you and the next person. But showing up with and being okay with, even if people might judge you from your vulnerability and weakness, that's actually a strength of connection because it shows you're human and it shows that you care, right? You care about whatever it might be, right? And I could say like I don't know you super well, but I already feel that connection because you showed up when we started talking. I'm like, whoa, okay, this is heavy, and let's talk about it, right? So how are you taking care of yourself right now? Like talking about it and sharing with folks, right? But in your practice, and you've been doing this for a while, you're an opera singer as well.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, we can talk a little bit about that as well. In times of change like this and of stress, how do you take care of yourself?
Well, you said something in regard to your own story around leaving the corporate world, and a lot of our network and our friends and communities are part of work. And I had that, I would say, shift as well when I left my last job at the end of 2021. I had been operating under this, I don't know, this understanding that my built in work community as part of the organization or corporation was what work community was. And that was something that I had to shift my thinking around. And since then, I now consider my work community many different areas. And right now, it feels actually quite resilient and robust because I have many communities to go to. I have my kind of chosen colleagues, coaches that I talk to, work with. Maybe we do some peer coaching or talk about our businesses together. I have some podcasters that are part of my community, lots and lots of singers and artists and ampersands. And I've also gotten really involved with my son's school. So that is a community in itself. And I think the more that we build our lives with these communities that we are part of, but we don't have to consistently be there, 9 to 5 every day,
Yeah.
the more resilient they are. And I'm even thinking about I go to a dance class twice a week. I've done this now for over a year, and I know a lot of the people in there, and we say hi to each other. We may not even know each other's names, but we
Hmm.
dance together.
Hmm.
And, if someone's missing for a month, you check in, right? You care about these people. I'm part of a weightlifting gym, and I have a little group there that are like They are musical theater weightlifters. So I found them. And I
Go well
think,
together.
yeah, right? So having all types of community people in your life that is actually bigger than what I previously had. Previously I thought about my work community as the kind of, okay, this is my one. I'm going to put everything into it. But now I think about it totally differently.
Yeah. Yeah. The building of community, what I found there is like, do you find you're more purposeful, like, or more mindful, like when you are building a new community of people around you that you're trying to connect in a different way? Like at work, it was about the work, right?
Yes.
But now that you're not in a corporation and kind of like these guardrails of a corporation, do you find like you try to connect deeper in different ways with these different people? Or I'm just curious how it's changed specifically.
Yeah, this is such a great question. I think I'm not sure I personally connect differently. But I think no matter what type of connection is, there always is an interface, right? And I think this is something that I've been playing around with. Like, if I'm at a school community meeting at my son's school, my first interface is as parent, right? We're part of the same school community. So when do I let you know I'm a singer? When am I going to have that conversation with you? So I think I'm always experimenting with bringing in these other interfaces. And I think that actually allows for more connection more quickly. And I think back to some of the workplaces that I've had in the past. I mean, I will never forget when I was at Apple and I'd been there for probably a year, maybe 2 years. And this one of my colleagues comes running down the hall with this piece of paper and she's like, "Is this you?" And she had somehow, through a friend of a friend, gotten my flyer for a,
Hmm.
opera recital. And I was like, "Yeah." And she had no idea. And so that sort of thing, I think nowadays, I feel right now I am living my most holistic, integrated life I have ever had. And that allows me to connect on so many different fronts. I just have
Hmm.
so many options to find a connection.
Yeah. So selfishly, I asked that question because it's so easy when you're working for a company, right? And many of us grew up working in some sort of company saying, "Oh, what do you do, Jessica?" "I work at Apple." For me, I work at Salesforce, right?
Mhm.
Or "I work at a tech company." Now it's like, "Well, what do you do?" Hmm. How do I explain this in terms that other people understand? And I'm playing with it, but I haven't been asked it recently by someone outside, but I'm trying to play with, what if I just moved away from the work identity, which is how we identify ourselves and how we identify success, like success is,
Mm.
and say, I'm a dad. I have two
Yeah.
kids and, and I take care of them. Like, that's success for me right now. And
Yeah.
it's about them. And for those listening and family members listening right now, I don't sit on my ass. I have other things going on. Okay, don't worry, no one's going hungry here. Um, sorry, is the Asian side of me coming? Okay, um, but playing with it, like, how do you introduce yourself when you're changing your identity? I
Yeah.
don't have, I don't belong to this clan anymore. The clan of
Mhm.
tech. It's a big part of who I am now, or made me who I am, but it's not who I am. So,
Mm.
and I wonder how, when you try to connect in a different way with people, not attached to these success of transactions, right? Of career, how does that change your life, right? How does that change your life? I don't know the answer yet. I'm experimenting right now and I'm having fun trying it out right now. So, um, one day I'll say I'm a podcaster, but
You are a podcaster.
I
Well,
technically I am, right? So
yes, you're
yes,
we are
I
recording this right now.
so I know. So I'll tell you a funny story. Okay, this is why I guess here's the thing. I'm going to pat myself on the back while I'm saying this. When I was working in the tech world, I think I think I rose pretty quickly to a place where it was a good leadership role. right? I got there. I did well for myself. From the outside, people look in, they're like, oh, wow, you're doing well, titles and everything. But if I was to be very honest, and here's where I pat myself on the back, I never thought myself as the head honcho. I never thought of myself as I got this. I ran a $1 billion business, Jessica. Okay. I will say it now. I have never said that to anyone while I was doing that job. It's because I'm reflecting now. It's like, oh, I think I did okay. Right. But while I was doing that, I never used that. You know what I mean? How do you describe that? I never attached that myself to that because I always knew like it's not permanent and it's not who I am. Right. This is a multi-billion dollar company. It's not mine. Right. This is just a job at the end of the day. So maybe that transition, even though I'm going through it right now, it's probably not as hard as for other people I've known who've, lived some pretty successful careers, but they identified with who they were in the job. It's like I ran a $50 billion business, blah, 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 blah. And this is what I did. I'm like, okay, but who are you now? Right. That's, anyways, I'm babbling right now. I had no point to that, Jessica.
Well, let me offer some thoughts. I think we all must be leaders in this fight against this terrible question, what do you do?
Mm-hmm.
I've actually posted on LinkedIn around this, and people really were receptive. I don't ask people, what do you do? Because I think it's a bad question. And I think it's a reflection of American capitalism. And like that question means, what do you do for work? And not just for work, but for paid work. And instead, I ask people, like, what are you excited about? What projects are on your list? What's taking your time and energy? What rabbit holes have you gone down recently? These are more thoughtful questions about a person's life. I mean, let's be real. So many people have been laid off. So many people are going through transition. People are going through health stuff. You have no idea, right? And why do we have to know, what do you do for your W-2? Like, that's really what that question is. And it's very limiting. In 2014, I spent a summer in Italy studying singing. And the Italians are master conversationalists. Never once did we get the question, what do you do? We were asked, where did you grow up? What movies and books have you been reading or watching? I mean, these are actually questions that are interesting to me. It tells me something about you. So I recommend, if you have a chance to go to Italy, go and talk with Italians. If you're like us, practice your broken Italian and just listen. I mean, I think, Americans, probably Canadians too, we're not really trained in the art of conversation, and that's a real shame, but it is a learned skill. So, I would really recommend for anyone listening, just try to stop asking the question, what do you do? It's hard. It's really hard. It's like in our DNA. But yeah, resist it. Where did you grow up? What interests you? Yeah.
You know what? I have some pretty good neighbors in my area in the sense of like we've lived together here for years and they had no clue what I did for a living. And I had no clue what they did for a living. Maybe just recently, after a decade here, I asked one of my neighbors, like, we're in the playground, our kids were playing there. And he's like, Dave, I never asked you, what do you do for a living? This is like almost a decade later.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm like, oh yeah, I work in tech and do this. Oh, okay, cool. What do you do? What? We never asked about like it was almost a decade, and so the connection was based on first and foremost our children and their tendencies and all the fun stuff around that, the projects around the house that we have going on, just all that stuff, right? Or if it's a ton of snow, it's like, good God, how's your back today? You feeling okay? How's that snow treating you, right? So it's stuff like that we talk about. I like that more, honestly. Right?
Yes.
Your how you think about that person is based on who you see, what you know about them versus does this job, right? He must act like this.
It just leads to more
right?
assumptions. Yeah.
It's a lot of assumptions. Like I had another group of classmates when I was taking a course a few years ago. They found out I was in tech. Their assumption was that I was introverted and awkward and loved to code. I don't code. I'm not introverted. I am awkward sometimes. But, out of those three things, only one is true.
Hmm.
So it wasn't until they got to know me, they're like, you're not that what I thought. I'm like, dude, like tech companies have multiple jobs, not just
Yeah.
software engineering.
Yep.
There's many jobs beyond that. Yeah. So Jessica, on that note, let me ask that question that you offered to ask others was, what are you looking forward to?
Yeah. So my word for 2026 is together. For the last few years, I've been doing this kind of word for the year. And I do set goals for myself, but also as an entrepreneur, I've learned to actually just let myself be surprised, which is
Mm-hmm.
wonderful. So
Mm-hmm.
last year, the word was possibility. That turned out to be great. This year, the word is together. So, one manifestation of this is I'm now co leading a virtual community for ampersands. So, people who are straddling a business and a creative career. And we're doing many in person sessions, or I guess some of them are synchronous online, and some of them will be truly in person. So, I am looking forward to that. And then I'll put an ask out on this podcast. I am looking for other ways to work together with people. And this is pretty open. I actually don't know what the other manifestations will be, whether it's through coaching or on the ampersand side of my life or musically. So I'll put that out there to your circle of people.
Okay. It sounds like you have a variety of stuff together. Have you ever mashed all of them together? The musical side of you with the ampersand side, like have you ever put those together?
Yes. And I think they end up being the projects that I have been the most proud of. So, one example of this was back in, I think, 2013, 2014. I was helping an opera company. So, this is Opera Parallel. They do a lot of work by living composers and composers of the 20th century. Amazing company in San Francisco. And I was kind of on their tech and music task force. And at the time, I was first working at Apple and then at a startup. And I ran a hackathon for them.
Hmm.
And it was really cool. So we were basically connecting the tech and musical worlds. And then they asked me to perform something. So I was running this hackathon. And then at the end, like they put makeup on me and it was great. I was dressed as Johann Sebastian Bach. So just imagine the the wigs and the makeup. It's still like my favorite I don't know, my favorite headshot. I'm like, here's me as
Mm-hmm.
Bach.
Mm-hmm.
And and then I sang. So this was like tech, leadership, working with people, singing. It's amazing. I think a lot of the work that I do that pulls from the various sides of me, when that magic happens and it all comes together, that is when it feels the most fulfilling.
Yeah, that's wonderful. When you talk about the word, I don't have a word for the year, but have a realization.
Ooh.
It's a realization, and I've shared this many times with friends that I met up with again recently, and they go, "Hey, how's it going?" Since leaving corporate, and I go, "This sounds very philosophical," and I've shared it with many people, saying, when you create space in your life, the things that you've been working for will fill it,
Mhm.
right? But only because I've created the space can the opportunities have the opportunity to fill that space.
Yeah.
And that's what I've been finding. Like when I actually said, you know what, I'm not taking on any more things. I have more ideas than
Mm,
time in the day and energy
right.
to do. I've chosen to stop things that I've started to do and not do specific things just because, like, you know what, I need to create that space.
Mm.
And I found is that that space has been taken up by, in a good way, the things that I've been working towards, like things I've been putting into motion, it started to fill it. Like, hey, Dave, do
Mhm.
you have time for this? Like, had someone reach out to me and totally unexpected. And like,
Mm.
in fact, yes, I do have time to do it now that it's filled with the things I want. So
Yeah.
I'm realizing I need to create space, a form of emptiness, in order for the opportunity to come. And so it's similar to a lot of the, uh, in Eastern philosophy and Japanese art as well.
Mm.
Where I can't remember the term that's used, but in Japanese art, there is this art that's all about the emptiness in between.
Mm.
And so
Yeah.
you will see art, but you will see a lot of white space in between. A lot
Mm.
of the architecture in Japanese culture is similar. It is about valuing what happens in the space in between,
Yeah.
because that is how things happen, is when you have space in between. So yeah, that's my realization,
That's a
right?
great realization.
I don't have a word for it, not yet. And I don't need a word for it. So Jessica, I always end this podcast now with a question of advice to give to the listeners. And if you were to give advice to the people listening around, what's one or two things they can do today to bring more joy into their life and into the work? What would that be?
Get outside. I kind of joke that every time I leave my house at 4 p.m., good things happen. And I have lived here for a long time. So I do run into people, or I see a funny bird, or a tree that now is blossoming. So get outside is my number one. And two, give a hug. I think those are related. Get outside, see somebody, give a hug. Or give a hug to the person that you share your home with, the people you share your home with, and you need to just give them a hug. I think that brings joy to everybody.
Right. Give a hug and get outside. We need sunlight.
Yes.
All right, Jessica. Well, look, if people need to find you, what is the best way to look you up?
Yep. I am on LinkedIn. That's my kind of one social media place where I do hang out. LinkedIn/Jessica M. Wan. And my website is jessicawan.com. And you can find me singing. You can read about my coaching. It's all
All right. And you have a podcast, the Ampersand Manifesto, as well, right?
the ampersandmanifesto.com. And you can listen to it on all the players.
Okay. All right, Jessica. Well, thank you very much for joining me today. And thank you, everyone, for listening into another episode. If you like this, like, subscribe, and smash that love button. All right. Speak to you all later. Bye. That's a wrap on this episode of the Coachful Coaching Leadership Podcast. I'm David Fung, and my mission is to help leaders grow, lead with impact, and build thriving teams. If you found this valuable, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a fellow leader. Until next time, keep leading with purpose.